Good evening. Welcome to Kenya News Update today. I'm your host, and we begin with a story that has sent shockwaves through international diplomacy and trade corridors. The White House has drawn a line in the sand, or rather, across the Detroit River, threatening to block the opening of a critical new bridge between the United States and Canada. This is not just about infrastructure, it's a direct challenge to the foundational principles of the US-Canada relationship. Tonight, we take a deep dive into President Donald Trump's threat to halt the Gordie Howe International Bridge, a $6.4 billion project fully funded by Canada. We'll explore the explosive demand for shared authority, the immediate political fallout, and what this means for the world's largest trading partnership. This is a 12-minute special report. Let's first set the scene. The Gordie Howe International Bridge is a monumental piece of engineering. It's designed to connect Windsor, Ontario, with Detroit, Michigan, standing as a vital new artery for the $750 billion in annual trade that flows between the two nations. For over a decade, this project has been in the works, envisioned as a modern replacement for the aging Ambassador Bridge, which currently handles a staggering 25% of all merchandise trade between the two countries. The key detail repeated in every project document is the funding. Canada is paying for the entire bridge, the U.S. port of entry, and the Michigan interchange. The total Canadian investment? A colossal $6.4 billion, or approximately £3.4 billion. This was a Canadian solution to a binational bottleneck offered to secure continental supply chains. Now, enter the crisis. On Monday night, President Donald Trump took to his Truth Social platform and issued a stark ultimatum. Let me read it directly. I will not allow the bridge to open until the United States is fully compensated for everything we have given them, and also, importantly, Canada treats the United States with the fairness and respect that we deserve. He added that the bridge was built with virtually no U.S. content. The post was a political thunderclap. Within hours, the White House formalized the threat, demanding that Canada share authority and ownership of the completed structure. This wasn't a renegotiation of a deal. It was a demand for a stake in a finished product, citing a lack of fairness and respect. The immediate reaction from Ottawa was one of stunned, firm rebuttal. Prime Minister Mark Carney, who had a clear and direct call with President Trump following the post, stated plainly, Canada paid for the bridge. He emphasized the project was built under a binding international agreement, and its purpose was mutual economic benefit. The Canadian message was unambiguous. The bridge is ours. It benefits both nations, and the demand for shared ownership at the 11th hour is not just unprecedented but fundamentally contrary to the agreement. This sets up a diplomatic standoff with no clear off-ramp. One side views it as securing American interests, the other sees it as coercive expropriation. To understand the why now, we must look at the broader context of Trump's trade philosophy. This is not an isolated incident. It's a manifestation of a long-held belief that America gets a bad deal from its allies. During his first term, we saw the renegotiation of NAFTA into the USMCA, with tense confrontations over dairy and automotive rules. The tactic often involves leveraging a tangible asset or deadline to extract concessions. The bridge, set to open after years of construction, presented a perfect pressure point. The demand for compensation for everything we have given them is deliberately vague, echoing grievances about trade deficits or military spending that have been part of his political rhetoric for years. This move tests a theory. Can direct, public pressure force a close ally to rewrite a concluded deal? Let's examine the numbers at the heart of this. The Canadian financial commitment is absolute. The $6.4 billion price tag covers everything from land acquisition in Michigan to the towering cable-stayed bridge itself. Compare this to other major binational projects. The original Ambassador Bridge, built by private interests, cost a fraction of this in today's dollars. The Peace Bridge between New York and Ontario was a shared cost. The Gordie Howe is unique in its unilateral funding. Now, the U.S. argument, as implied, might point to the long-term maintenance costs of the U.S. port of entry or the value of the American land used. But these were all settled in the treaty. The demand appears to be for a retroactive payment or AQT share, a move that financial analysts say would be like demanding a share of a house your neighbor just finished building on their own property because you benefit from the new road. The legal and treaty implications are profound. The bridge was constructed under a 2012 agreement between the Canadian and Michigan state governments, with the U.S. federal government granting necessary permits. International law experts are scrambling. Can a sitting U.S. president unilaterally block the operation of infrastructure on sovereign U.S. territory, even if built by a foreign partner? Likely, yes, through customs and border authority. But does that action violate the spirit and letter of the existing treaty? That would be a case for international courts, a path both nations would desperately want to avoid. It creates a dangerous precedent that infrastructure partnerships are not secure from post-construction renegotiation under threat of closure. This chilling effect could freeze future binational projects worldwide. Now, let's consider the economic impact. The Ambassador Bridge is over 90 years old. The Gordie Howe was designed to add resilience and capacity to a choke point in North America's industrial heartland. Over 10,000 trucks cross the border at Detroit-Windsor every day. A delay in opening the new bridge doesn't just mean missed opportunities, it keeps strain on the older infrastructure. Economists have modeled the cost of delay. Each day the Gordie Howe sits idle, the region forgoes increased efficiency and potential new trade. In a time of fragile supply chains, this is a self-inflicted wound. For Michigan, the promised jobs and economic activity from the new crossing are put on hold. For Ontario, the return on a $6.4 billion investment is delayed indefinitely. This is a lose-lose in pure economic terms, which makes the political calculus all the more striking. The political reaction has split along predictable lines. In the U.S., President Trump's supporters hail the move as strong leadership, finally making allies pay their way. Critics, including some Republican lawmakers from border states, warn of devastating economic consequences for their constituents. In Canada, the response is one of unified dismay across the political spectrum. Prime Minister Carney, facing his first major test with the Trump administration, must balance firmness with the need to preserve the relationship. His statement was calibrated, factual, non-confrontational, but unwavering on the principle of the agreement. The danger for Carney is appearing weak. The danger for Trump is triggering a full-blown trade war with America's largest export market. Zooming out, this incident is a case study in 2026 geopolitics. It reflects a world where long-standing alliances are transactional, where hard power is applied to economic partnerships. From a Kenyan or global perspective, it's a warning. If the United States can make such a demand of its closest neighbor and largest trading partner, what expectations might it have for other alliances? Does it signal a new approach to shared infrastructure projects in Africa or Asia involving U.S. partners? The principle being tested, that completed projects can be held hostage for new concessions, is one that would concern any nation engaged in international development. It introduces a new layer of political risk into global engineering. So, what are the potential resolutions? Scenario 1, a face-saving compromise. Perhaps the U.S. drops the ownership demand in exchange for a symbolic, new side agreement on regulatory alignment or a specific trade concession unrelated to the bridge. Scenario 2, protracted stalemate. The bridge remains closed, lawsuits are filed, and the economic costs mount until political pressure forces one side to blink. Scenario 3, escalation. Canada could retaliate with targeted trade measures, leading to a cycle of sanctions that severs the cooperative spirit of the USMCA. The most likely path is a tense negotiation behind closed doors, seeking a formula that lets both leaders claim victory while getting the bridge open. In conclusion, the Gordie Howe International Bridge stands complete, a testament to engineering and binational planning. Yet, it is now wrapped in a political barbed wire of unprecedented demands. This is more than a dispute over a crossing. It's a stress test for the rules-based international order on a micro scale. It asks whether agreements are truly binding or merely suggestions until a more favorable deal can be demanded. The outcome will resonate far beyond the Detroit River. It will signal to the world how this U.S. administration defines fairness with its allies and what cost it is willing to bear to enforce that definition. For the workers, businesses, and communities on both sides of the border, the hope is that cool heads and shared interest prevail before the economic damage becomes irreversible. The bridge is ready. The question is whether the political will to open it exists. For Kenya News Update today, this has been a special deep dive report. Subscribe to Kenya News Update today for continued coverage of this developing story and more global news that impacts you.